First, we'll create a capsule, which will represent our player. We'll add a character controller component, so we'll be able to control the capsule through it. Then a script called player control, which will handle the character controller movement and the camera control. Adjust your player position and scale to suit your scene. Add 3 floats: speed, jump speed, and gravity. We'll tweak them later to suit our player. We need a vector 3 variable which will handle the values of how our character will propagate, and a reference to the character controller. In the start method, this line of code will get us access to the character controller component, and store it in the variable controller, which we identified above, so we control the component through it. In this if statement, we'll check if the character is on the ground, which is the case we want the player to walk or jump, to make it realistic. Now we're changing the move direction X value relative to the horizontal axis and the Z value relative to the vertical axis, respectively changed by pressing A or D on the keyboard or W and S in our case. Here we're using transform direction to let the player move according to his own rotation instead of the world rotation. To understand it more, comment the line out when you finish the code, and see how it acts. Now we multiply the move direction by speed to affect the vector's impact and get a real speed result. This if statement adds value on the Y realm of the vector 3 move direction when space is pressed. Now we'll multiply our vector 3 with the gravity, taking time in consideration. Finally, we apply our vector 3 on the character controller. Let's get back to the editor. It's working. Adjust the variables in the inspector to suit your player. Now for the camera part, make the camera a child of the player, and adjust its position and rotation. After that we need to stop the camera from rendering the player's body. First make a new layer called player, and assign it to the player, then from the camera component, remove the player layer from the rendering layer list. Now we'll add new variables, the camera game object, and 3 floats, look speed, look X limit, and rotation X. First the rotation X will be changed by the mouse Y input. We'll clamp the rotation X so the player won't look on the X-axis 360 degrees. Now implement the rotation X on the camera's X-axis. Then the whole player Y-axis rotation is changed by the mouse X input affected by the look speed float. Before testing, please make sure to reference the camera in the inspector. Tweak values to perfection. Notice how the cursor is still visible. We need to remove it on play. In the start method, this 2 lines will lock the mouse cursor and hide it. Done. Now we need our character to crouch. In the update method, inside the if grounded statement, this two if statements will execute on the press and release of the key C, changing the character controller height, hence, crouching. Done. For the sprint, we need two floats, walk speed, and sprint speed. Under the crouch if statement, we'll add when left shift is pressed, speed will be equal to sprint speed, else, walk speed. Don't forget to tweak the values. Done. Now for grabbing objects, create a script called camera script on the camera game object. First we need a reference to the game object we will grab, and a position where the object will reside when grabbed. In the update method we need a raycast reference which will allow us to detect what we are looking to. Now in this if statement, it will execute when we press the E button, and when our launched raycast hit a collider at a distance of 5, which should have a rigid body, and a tag named grabbable. The grabbed object will save the object we hit. Now when Q button is pressed, it will remove the object from the grabbed object variable. The last line lets our grabbed object propagate towards the grab position at the speed of 10. After that, please create the grab position object and center it in front of the camera. Don't forget to reference it in the inspector. Now we need to assign to our objects the tag grabbable, and add to it rigid bodies. Now let's add a point in the center of screen, to help our player aim at objects he wants to grab. Ready for action. A last tip you can use to let your character walk on steep ramps is to change the slope limit in the character controller component. Hope that helps. Please ask any questions in the discussion field. Good luck.